We are back with part 2 of this week's reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Trio Life Version, TLV. Somehow I got a little more long-winded than the first time that I actually recorded it, because I actually did finish chapter 17 the first time around, but I'm only about halfway through it now. So never know what's going to happen when we do these recordings, as I say. But anyway, we're going to continue with chapter 17, and I'm going to do the second part of chapter 17, which is entitled A Deceitful Heart is Incurable. The heart is deceitful above all things and incurable. Who can know it? I, Adonai, search the heart, I try the mind, to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. As a partridge that broods over young that she did not lay, so is one who gets wealth unjustly. In the middle of his days it will abandon him, so at his end he will be a fool. Throne of glory on high from the beginning, place of our sanctuary, Adonai, you are the hope of Israel. All who forsake you will be ashamed. Those who depart from you will be written in the dirt, for they have forsaken Adonai, the fountain of living waters. Heal me, Adonai, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. For you are my praise. Look, they are saying to me, where is the word of Adonai? Let it come now. As for me, I have not run away from being a shepherd after you, nor have I desired the woeful day. What came out of my lips, you know it was before you, but not a ruin to me. You are my refuge in the evil day. Let my persecutors be ashamed. You let me not be ashamed. Let them be dismayed, but let me not be dismayed. Let them be dismayed, but let me not be dismayed. Bring on them the evil day, destroy them with double destruction. So that was Jeremiah calling out. Um, and that's the end of that section of chapter 17. So there's a passage in the Brit Kadashah that kind of parallels what the persecution that Jeremiah was facing with the people, that when they were saying, well, where is he? Where is Adonai? Um, bring it on. If he's coming, let's see Adonai, basically. And they were like, they were persecuting him, but challenging him. Um, where is the word of Adonai? Let it come now, is what they're saying. So Second Peter, chapter 3, verse 4, actually parallels that, um, with the scoffers and the mockers, in the end times. First of all, understand that in the last days, scoffers will come scoffing, following after their own desires, and that's verse 3. Verse 4 says, and saying, where is this promise of his coming? Ever since the fathers died, everything goes on just as it has from the beginning of creations. So this is what the people, this is the end times, what people will be acting like, just the same as the ancient times when Jeremiah is saying, look, time has run out. Judgment is coming. And they're saying, nothing's happened all this time. Isaiah spoke about it 100 years ago, basically. And we go on and on and on. And they weren't listening. They weren't listening to the words of wisdom that Jeremiah was giving them, and saying, well, time has run out, basically, and it's coming. So that was a parallel of, you know, future time and past time, um, as we can go back and forth between the Tanakh and the Brit Kadashah that way. There's a lot of types and shadows, and that we go back and forth with. The last section of chapter 17, carry no burden on Shabbat. Thus says Adonai to me, go, stand in the gate of the children of the people through which the kings of Judah come in and go out, and in all the gates of Jerusalem, and say to them, hear the word of Adonai, kings of Judah, and all inhabitants of Jerusalem who enter through these gates. Thus says Adonai, guard your souls. Carry no burden on the day of Shabbat, or bring it in through the gates of Jerusalem, nor should you carry a burden out of your houses on Yom Shabbat, or do any work, but keep Yom Shabbat holy, as I commanded your fathers. Yet they did not listen or incline their ear, but stiffened their neck, not hearing or accepting correction. However, If you listen attentively to me, says Adonai, to bring in no burden through the gates of this city on Yom Shabbat, but sanctify Yom Shabbat and do no work on it, then there will enter in through the gates of this city kings and princes sitting on the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses, with their princes, the people of Judah, and those dwelling in Jerusalem, and this city will be inhabited forever. They will come from the cities of Judah and from all around Jerusalem, from the land of Benjamin, from the lowland, from the hill country, and from the south, bringing burnt offerings and sacrifices, grain offerings, frankincense, and sacrifices of thanksgiving to the house of Adonai. But if you do not listen to me to keep Yom Shabbat holy, by not bearing a burden or entering through the gates of Jerusalem on Yom Shabbat, then I will set its gates on fire, and it will consume the citadels of Jerusalem and not be quenched. And that's the end of chapter 17. Chapter 18, the potter's house. The word came to Jeremiah from Adonai, saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause you to hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was making a work on the wheels. Whenever the pot that he was making from the clay became flawed in the hand of the potter, he remade it into another pot, as it pleased the potter to make. Then the word of Adonai came to me, saying, O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter does? Declares Adonai, Behold, as the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. At one moment I may speak about a nation or a kingdom to uproot, to pull down, or to destroy it. But if that nation turns from their evil because of what I have spoken against it, I will relent concerning the calamity that I plan to do to it. Or at another time I may speak about a nation or about a kingdom to build up or to plant it. But if it does evil in my sight, not listening to my voice, then I will relent of the good that I had said I would do to it. So now speak to the people of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, Thus says Adonai, I am about to bring calamity against you and devise disaster against you. Turn back now, everyone from his evil way, and amend your ways and your doings. But they say, It's hopeless, so we will walk after our own plans, and each of us will act in the stubbornness of his evil heart. Therefore, thus says Adonai, ask now among the nations, whoever has heard such things. The Virgin of Israel has done a most terrible thing. Does the snow of Lebanon abandon the rock of the field, or is the cold water flowing from afar pulled back? Yet my people have forgotten me. They burn incense to a delusion and stumble in their ways off the ancient paths to walk on side tracks rather than build up highway. Their land will become a horror, a perpetual hissing. Everyone passing by will be stunned and shake his head. Like an east wind, I will scatter them before the enemy. I will see their back, not their face, in the day of their calamity. So in that section, we can see Adonai is the potter and we are the clay. That's a reference to that. Plots against Jeremiah. Then they said, Come, let us devise plans against Jeremiah. Surely Torah from the Kohen will not be lost, nor will counsel from the wise, nor will the word from the prophet come. Let's strike at him with the tongue and pay no attention to any of his words. Be attentive to me, Adonai. Listen to the voice of my opponents. Will good be repaid for evil? For they dug a pit for my soul. Remember how I stood before you to speak good on their behalf, to turn your wrath from them. Therefore give their children to famine, and pour out the power of the sword. Let their wives be bereaved of children and widows, and let their men be slain to death, and their young men struck down by the sword in battle. Let a cry be heard from their houses, when suddenly you bring a troop on them. For they dug a pit to capture me, and hid snares for my feet. Yet you know their whole plot, Adonai against me to slay me. Do not forgive their iniquity or blot out their sin before you, but make them stumble before you. Act against them in the time of your anger. So Jeremiah was pleading to God to avenge him of what they were doing to, the people were doing to him. Chapter 19, Shattering a Clay Jar. Thus, says Adonai, go buy a potter's clay jar, take some elders of the people, some elders of the Kohanim, and go out to the valley of Ben Hinnom, near the entrance of the potsherd's gate. That's Potsherd, gate. Proclaim these the words that I will tell you, and say, hear the word of Adonai, kings of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, the God of Israel, I am about to bring such a catastrophe on this place that whoever hears about it, his ears will tingle, for they have forsaken me and have alienated this place by burning sacrifices in it to other gods, which neither they nor their forefathers nor the kings of Judah have known. They have also filled this place with the blood of innocents. They have built high places for Baal in order to burn their children in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, something I never commanded nor mentioned, nor did it ever come into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days are coming. It is a declaration of Adonai, when this place will no longer be called Topheth, or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. So I will make void the counsel of Judah and Jerusalem in this place. I will have them fall by the sword before their enemies by the hand of them that seek their life. I will give their carcasses as food for the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth, and I will make this city a horror and a hissing. Everyone passing by will be stunned and hiss because of all her wounds. And I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and their daughters, and every one will eat his companion's flesh during the siege and distress which their enemies and those who seek their life will inflict on them. Then you will shatter the jar in the presence of the people who accompany you, and say to them, thus says Adonai Sabaoth, even so I will shatter this people and this city, and one shatters a potter's jar, which can never be made whole again. So they will be burying in Topheth, for there will be no other place to bury. Thus I will do to this place. It is a declaration of Adonai, and to its inhabitants, making this city as Topheth. The houses of Jerusalem and the houses of the kings of Judah will be as defiled as the place of Topheth. All the houses on whose roofs they burned incense to the whole heavenly host and poured out drink offerings to other gods. Then Jeremiah came from Topheth, where Adonai had sent him to prophesy, and he stood in the court of Adonai's house and said to all the people, thus says Adonai Sabaoth, the God of Israel, I am about to bring on this city and all her towns the whole disaster that I pronounced against it, because they stiffened their neck rather than hearing my words. Confronting a false prophet. So when Pashur, and that's spelled Pashhur, son of Immer the Kohen, who was chief officer in the house of Adonai, heard Jeremiah prophesying these things. Pashur had Jeremiah the prophet beaten and put in the stocks at the upper Benjamin gate by the house of Adonai. The following morning Pashur released Jeremiah from the stocks. Then Jeremiah said to him, Adonai no longer calls your name Pashur, but Magar-Missabib. For thus says Adonai, behold, I will make you a terror, both to yourself and to everyone you love. They will fall by the sword of their enemies while your eyes look on it. So I will give all Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he will carry them captive to Babylon and will slay them with the sword. Moreover, I will give away all the wealth of this city and all its produce and its precious things, even all the treasures of the kings of Judah I will give over to the hand of their enemies, who will plunder them, take them away, and bring them to Babylon. As for you, Pashur, and all who live in your house, you will go into captivity, and you will go to Babylon. So there you will die, and there you will be buried, you and all your friends to whom you have prophesied falsely. So Pashur was a false prophet, and Jeremiah is telling him what God is saying. He was a false prophet, but he was going to die in Babylon. The second part of chapter 20, we've heard this many times, fire burning in my bones. Adonai, you enticed me, so I was enticed. You overpowered me and prevailed. I'm a laughingstock all day long. Everyone mocks me, for whenever I speak I cry out. I proclaim violence and ruin. For the word of Adonai is scorn and ridicule to me all day long. But if I say, I won't mention him, or speak any more in his name, then it is like fire burning in my heart, shut up in my bones. I weary myself holding it in, but I cannot. This is Jeremiah speaking of it. He wanted to be quiet because he's being persecuted, but he can't. These are the words of God, and God put these words into his mouth to speak, and he can't control it because God is actually using him to prophesy. For I heard the whispering of many, terror on every side. Denounce him, let's denounce him. Even all my close friends are watching for my fall. Perhaps he may be deceived, so we'll get the better of him and we'll get our revenge on him. But Adonai is with me like a dreadful warrior. Therefore my persecutors will stumble and will not prevail, since they are not insightful and not wise. They will be utterly shamed, an everlasting disgrace, never to be forgotten. Yet Adonai Sabaoth, testing the righteous, sing the mind and the heart. Let me see your vengeance on them, for to you have I presented my case. Sing to Adonai, praise Adonai, for he has delivered the soul of the needy one from the hand of evildoers. Cursed be the day I was born, the day that my mother bore me, may it never be blessed. Cursed be the one who brought the news to my father, saying, a baby is born to you, making him so glad. Now let that one be like the cities which Adonai overturned, which no relenting let him hear a cry in the morning, and a shout of alarm at noon. Since he did not kill me in the womb, so my mother might have been my grave, her womb filled forever. Why did I ever come forth out of the wombs to see trouble and sorrow, and my days end in shame? This is Jeremiah pleading out, and how how he's feeling emotionally with all of this going on, that he wishes he had never been born because of the burden that he is carrying, and what he is having to do. But he's doing it. He is a very powerful prophet of God. Chapter 21, Warning to King Zedekiah and Judah. The word which came to Jeremiah from Adonai when King Zedekiah sent to him Pashur son of Malchiah and Zephaniah son of Maaseiah, which is Maaseiah, the Kohen, saying, Please inquire of Adonai for us, since Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, is making war against us. Perhaps Adonai will deal with us according to all his wondrous miracles, so that he would withdraw from us. Then said Jeremiah to them, Thus will you say to Zedekiah, Thus says Adonai, the God of Israel, I will soon turn back the weapons of war that are in your hands, which you used to fight against the king of Babylon, against the Chaldeans, who are besieging you outside the walls. I will assemble them in the center of this city. I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even with anger, fury, and in great wrath. I will also strike down the inhabitants of this city, both man and beast. They will die of a great pestilence. Then afterward, declares Adonai, I will deliver King Zedekiah of Judah and his servants, as well as the people, those surviving in this city from the pestilence, the sword, and the famine, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into the hand of their foes, yes, into the hand of those who seek their life. So he will smite them with the edge of the sword. He will not spare them, nor have pity or compassion. Now to this people you will say, Thus says Adonai, Look, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He who remains in this city will die by the sword, by the famine, or by the pestilence. But whoever goes out and surrenders to the Chaldeans who are besieging you, he will live, and he will have his life as prize. For I have set my face against this city for evil, not for good. It is a declaration of Adonai. It will be given into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he will burn it with fire. Also to the house of the king of Judah, hear the word of Adonai, O house of David. Thus says Adonai, Render justice by morning, and rescue the one who is robbed out of the hand of the oppressor. Otherwise my fury will go forth like fire and burn, so no one can extinguish it because of their evil deeds. Here I am against you, situated in the valley, a rocky plateau. It is a declaration of Adonai. You are saying, Who would come down against us? who would enter into our lairs, I will punish you according to the first of your deeds, according to the fruit of your deeds. It is the declaration of Adonai. Also, I will set fire to her forest, and it will consume all around her. So Jeremiah prophesied King Zedekiah would be overthrown and taken into captivity into Babylon. Chapter 22, Warning to David's heirs. Thus says Adonai, go down to the palace of the king of Judah and speak this word. Hear the word of Adonai, O king of Judah, who sits on the throne of David, your servants, and your people who enter by these gates. Thus says Adonai, execute justice and righteousness. Rescue the one who is robbed out of the hand of the oppressor. Do not mistreat or do violence to the stranger, the fatherless, or the widow. Do not shed innocent blood in this place, for if you really carry out this word, then through the gates of this palace will enter kings sitting on the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses himself, his servants, and his people. But if you will not obey these words, I swear by myself, declares Adonai, that this palace will become a ruin. For thus says Adonai concerning the house of the king of Judah, you are Gilead to me, the summit of Lebanon, yet I will surely make you into a wilderness, uninhabited cities. I will consecrate destroyers against you, each with his own weapons. They will cut down your choice cedars and cast them into the fire. Many nations will pass by this city, and they will say each to his neighbor, why has Adonai done such a great thing to this great city? Why has Adonai done such a thing to this great city? Then they will answer, because they abandoned the covenant of Adonai their God and worshipped other gods and served them. Weep not for the dead, or bemoan him. Weep bitterly for him who departs, for he will never return or see his native country again. For thus says Adonai to Shallum, son of King Josiah of Judah, who became king in place of his father Josiah, he who went forth from this place will never return there. Instead, in the place where they led him captive, there will he die. He will see this land no more. Oh, oi to him who builds his house by unrighteousness and his roof chambers by injustice, that makes his neighbor work without pay, never giving him wages, who says, I will build myself a big house with spacious rooms, and cut out my windows for it, and panel it with cedar, and paint it with vermilion. Did you become king just to be striving with cedar? Did your father not eat and drink and do justice and righteousness? Then it went well with him. He pled the case of the poor and weak, so it went well. Is not this knowledge of me? It is a declaration of Adonai. But your eyes and your heart are only on your unjust gain, on and on shedding innocent blood, and committing extortion and fraud. Therefore, thus says Adonai about Jehoiakim, son of King Josiah of Judah, they will not lament for him, oi, my brother, or oi, sister. They will not lament for him, oi, master, or oi, his majesty. With a donkey's burial will he be buried, dragged off and thrown outside the gates of Jerusalem. Go up to Lebanon and cry out, and lift up your voice in Bashan, and cry from Abarim. For all your lovers are broken. I spoke to you in your prosperity, but you said, I won't listen. This has been your way since your youth, for you never listened to my voice. The wind will shepherd away all your shepherds, and your lovers will go into exile. Surely then you will be ashamed and humbled by all your wickedness, O inhabitants of Lebanon, nestled in the cedars, how you will groan when pangs come on you, pain like a woman in travail. As I live, declares Adonai, even if Coniah, son of King Jehoiakim of Judah were a signet ring on my right hand, yet I would pull you off and give you over into the hand of those seeking your life, yet into the hand of those whom you dread, even into the hand of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and into the hand of the Chaldeans. So I will cast you out with your mother who bore you into another country where you were not born, and there you will die. But as for the land where you long to return, they will never return. They will never return there. And I will be back with part 3.